All right, welcome everybody to Brand, Sweat, and Tears. I'm Dave Oldham, the host. I have this. I know I get excited about a lot of my guests, but like this one might be one of my favorite all time because I've been friends with this guy who's my guest, JP Francia, Jon Pierre Francia, for it feels like 100 years. It's pretty close to 100 years, right?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Probably 94.
I met JP through a common friend, Dave Howe, the owner of The Blind Man, common friend of ours. And I can't even remember like the first time we met, but we were all single. It was like a long time ago. And in my network of friends, I consider JP to be the most interesting man in the world. Like he has the coolest stories and has had the coolest adventures and the craziest stuff. So this is going to be fun. This will be really exciting.
Right.
Yeah. So this will be cool. He's a super creative guy. And so I'm really, really excited for this one. But I was just asking you before we started recording, I've always known you as JP. I knew it stood for Jon Pierre, but I've never called you Jon Pierre. It's always just been JP. And so I just asked you, like, how did that, like, tell me a little bit about the name. So tell me that.
So I grew up,
story.
my middle name is Pierre, but everybody called me Jon Francia for my whole life until I went to Chile in, I forget, 1990-something to meet my grandfather, who I'd never met before he passed away. And I was there for like 10 days, 2 weeks, and the whole family, Jon Pierre this, Jon Pierre, Jon Pierre, Jon Pierre. Was like, and I thought, I like that. So when I came home from my trip, I said to everyone, forevermore, I am Jon Pierre.
Jon Pierre. And did you say it like that?
I
like
did.
Pirate style?
Yeah,
Jon Pierre. I love it. Okay, so Jon Pierre Francia, JP. And JP is currently the founder and CEO of this really cool beverage company called Life Cider. Holding this up for the camera. It is a really cool beverage that is apple cider vinegar base with really cool flavor profiles and stuff like that. We'll get to that towards the end. We're building up to that. But we got to go way back on a cold, dark December morn in the ghetto where Jon, I'll get him, to Jon's early kind of entrepreneurial stuff. And there are multiple facets of this story as we build up towards the crescendo of where we're currently at with Life Cider. So let's go back. And I was asking you earlier, like, when you were a kid, were you one of these super entrepreneurial kids, or like, where do you think the entrepreneur bug kind of started with you?
I'd say my freshman year in high school, my mom had bought me some clothes. I don't know if it was Sears or JCPenney's or something, and I didn't like them, or there was something wrong with them. I don't remember what the story was, but we took it back to return it, and the clerk wouldn't return it. So my mom said, "We're going upstairs to see the manager," and I was terrified. I was like, "Oh no!"
I'm taking this.
So we went upstairs, the manager, and very little discussion. The manager took care of us, and that was my first aha moment that no isn't really a thing. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah,
because my mom doesn't take no for an answer, and that started something. So when I just thought I could do anything. Mm-hmm. That literally launched this thought. So my sophomore year, we had our football raffle at the beginning of the year where you're raising money for football. And I didn't go door to door. I went into Spokane from our, lived 20 miles out of Spokane. I went to Spokane, went to the Ford dealer, and talked them into selling my jackets to all their employees. So
I'm not going to one door at a time, that nonsense. I'm just going to go sell 100.
I had to go to scale.
That's awesome.
So, I of course, crushed that competition. Forever after, I just thought I could be happy selling stuff. And I think around 21 years old, I thought I was going to school, and me and my buddy had an idea for some T-shirts. So we started creating T-shirts and selling them to the dorms. And we sold a lot of T-shirts. So I was going to get in the T-shirt business. And, I don't know how far to go down that rabbit hole to go, but a lot of entrepreneurial stuff in my life.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, I mean, like, from the T-shirt thing, like, how long did it last, and then how quickly did you decide, like, oh, maybe this isn't where I want to...
I decided I want to be pounding on, college dorm room doors and that sort of thing. I wanted to do something bigger. And I actually found J&M and Sanmar were the big T-shirt blank sellers. Mm-hmm. And I had a guy who I knew from my neighborhood who was an importer-exporter. And so I found blanks I could pull out of, I don't know if it was China or Japan or somewhere, and I could pull them in for like 60 cents a piece. So I already had pre-sold like 10 or 15,000 shirts a month to local T-shirt shops.
Wow.
And the guy who I knew was like, "Oh, I like that," so he just did it himself.
He stole your idea.
He stole it,
He
sucker.
cut out the middleman.
He's already rich. I was just a punk kid, right? And he cut. But nonetheless, I had this, idea that I can just go do things. And then I.
So did you just end up walking away from that business?
Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't want to be a regular T-shirt guy.
Okay.
That's not my thing. I like creating art. But then I got to a while here. I really wanted to be an Air Force pilot, and I was actually going to sign my junior commitment. The day I was walking in to sign my junior commitment, CNN was on in the background as I'm walking out of my apartment, and says the airport today announced they're going from 8 years to 10 years commitment. I was like, in my 21, 22-year-old brain, I could imagine 8 years. 10 years seemed like an eternity.
That broke it.
I'm like, no. So I actually left school after that semester, went home to Seattle, and flew every day and worked every night at Red Robin. I was actually the #1 salesperson in the country, waiter in the country for Red Robin that year.
Nice.
Yeah, I sold
slinging those burgers and fries.
Yeah, busiest store in the country, and I was the head waiter.
Very cool.
But I put myself through flight school and got every license you could get in 1 year. I got my private, instrument, commercial.
So you literally put every penny that you earned from Red Robin just into flight lessons.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I became a flight instructor, a multi-engine instructor, an instrument instructor, seaplane pilot, like all of it. Started a little flight school. And this is another one of those entrepreneurial moments. Most guys I knew who went and got their instructor's license, they went to work for some school in Boeing Field.
Yeah.
And just kind of sat there and hoped a student would walk through.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I found some guys who owned 4 airplanes, and they kept them 100-houred, which means you could rent them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to deal with them. And then I put an ad in the Seattle Times, and it said, free flight instruction, aircraft available.
Free?
Free flight instruction.
Okay.
But I was making $12 an hour on the difference between what I got charged per hour and what was a normal going rate per hour. Hobbs and takt time, the two different types of way you measure engine time on an airplane. Hobbs time just runs constantly, and takt time is how fast the tachometer is running. So with student pilots, you're idling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they're paying on Hobbs, I'm paying on takt.
Okay.
So I was making, $12, $15 an hour, flying 8 hours a day, and got to a place where I was ready to go in the airlines, like fast. Went back to school to finish my degree, met my wife, and she was hot, beautiful, awesome, my best friend, and we decided I didn't want to be gone 5 or 6 days a week flying, airlines.
Yeah.
Because it was a rough gig back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so her dad, who owned a semiconductor equipment company in the Bay Area, said, "You're a smart guy. Like, I can see you could sell. You're smart. If you can be an instrument instructor, you're smart."
Mm-hmm.
He wanted me to come to work for him. And I was like, I don't really know how to do much with computers. He goes, "You'll figure it out." So pretty quickly, I went from just a little sales guy to running global operations for Core Systems in the Bay Area and managing all of our sales of semiconductor equipment stuff. And then, oddly enough, when I met my wife, I was in film school. I was going to BYU and was in film school, and that was my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And, spent like 2 semesters doing that before I decided to just go to work full time to, be a grown up. And he said, "Hey, why don't you do a video for this area of our company?"
Mm-hmm.
So I just got a high 8 camera and shot enough stuff to put a video together, found some local editor and paid him whatever you paid an editor back then, and put this video together and wrote the voiceover for it.
So this is kind of like a commercial video, because this is way before social media was a thing. So what was the format? Was it going to be like a TV commercial?
No,
or?
it was just like a video that we put on a DVD and ship around to all the engineers and
okay, so
purchasing
it's
managers.
Direct marketing DVD style.
Yeah.
Okay.
So created a video, and it sold a lot of product.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our sales went through the roof.
Wow.
And he's like, "Hey, do a video for this other part of the company." So I did. Sales went through the roof.
Wow.
And one of our East Coast reps who managed the entire East Coast for us said, "Hey, I'm selling so much more core product. Could you do a video for some of my other clients?" So I started getting hired to do high-tech videos. I was a pretty good technical writer.
Yeah.
And started doing that and got to a place where I'm like, I like this. So I told my father-in-law, "I think I found my passion. I'm leaving."
What was his response?
"Good luck, son."
Well, I mean, was he sarcastic about yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot?
Honestly.
Or was he supportive?
He was pretty supportive.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he was like, "You got a good gig going." I was making good money.
All right.
And so I started a production company and started really killing it. And then that's when, I'd known Dave before I left Utah to go back to the Bay Area.
Yeah,
to
Dave Howell, our common
Howell.
friend, yeah.
So when we came back, I produced the Blind Man commercial where we shot this, put a bed out in the middle of Hobble Creek, and it was a really cool commercial. And then our
Did you guys get in trouble for that? Or was like you were fast enough that's like, we're going to be in and out. Nobody's even going to know.
I don't think anybody ever knew.
That's cool.
I didn't know.
And even after the fact, like they're not like, wait a minute.
No.
That's cool.
So the production started growing. And then some friends of ours came to us and said, hey, we have this idea for a children's series. Will you help us? Because nobody else will. And I was like, told my wife, babe, okay, I know you love sign language because my wife loves sign language.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up writing, producing, editing, directing, funding a children's series about sign language. And
very cool.
Really starting to take it off. And I got us on the Today Show. But then just, some issues happened that I don't really want to go into. But
yeah.
When I exited that company.
With like business partners and stuff.
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you guys were on with Katie Couric.
I got us on.
Massive publicity.
I went through. So here's another one of those no is not an answer.
Yeah.
I called the Today Show switchboard. And I called about 25, 26 times.
Oh, so they didn't reach out to you. Like you cold called them basically.
I cold called them until one of those operators gave me a name.
Okay.
Somebody who worked in head office.
Okay.
Betsy Alexander. And so I worked that name until I got her assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of that conversation with her assistant, he said, I think there's something here. So they called back 2 days later and said, we'd love to do a story on you. Actually, we'd love to do a very special story on you. So they sent a camera team and shot for 2 days with us when we were shooting episodes 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left that series, I missed it because I got calls every day from parents all over the English-speaking world saying, God bless you, thank you.
Wow.
Because it made a difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, we had kids who were, autistic, who had never communicated with a caregiver ever, and now they were signing.
So this was teaching kids at a young age sign language through video.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I missed that. I missed having something that just really... So my wife said, well, what do you love more than anything besides me? And I was like, airplanes. She goes, go do that. So I created Andy's Airplanes. You can still find it on YouTube. We did the first episode in 2007, finished 2008. And I got, after that episode, a bunch of Hollywood people called and said, we love this. So I met with a bunch of people and ended up signing with Kathy Malatesta. Kathy Malatesta is the lady who literally greenlit and did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She was the lady. She did $8 billion in 8 years with that series.
Wow.
Every licensing, TV, merchandising deal in the world she did with Fred Wolf, the creator of the
This is the original TMNT. Yeah.
So she actually greenlit that without permit because that was for Westinghouse TV.
Mm-hmm.
Westinghouse, the CEO said no.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got fired for something else. So she was the only one with any signature authority. So she signed on the dime, a $2 million green light deal. When the new CEO came in, he said, can that? She goes, we'll get our butts handed to us. We just got to do it. So they did it. And he said, you believe in it? She said, I do. Anyway, long story short, I signed with her. She's like, JP, this is a great series. This is an evergreen. This will be.
And how many episodes did you guys create?
We only got one done. Okay, but we had scripts written by some of the best writers in the world. Jimmy Hibbert from the BBC, Carter Crocker and Carl Goers, the Disney Afternoons team, like Darkwing Duck, Tailspin, all those. They were like, JP, we love this series.
Wow.
So then I got, Kathy brought on Teresa Plummer Andrews, who was the 20-year head of BBC Kids, the greatest producer in children's television history.
Wow.
And then they brought on Joyce Miller, the head of Disney TV production at the time. I had the greatest children's TV team ever. And the 2008 crash settled in. We needed $7 million to put it on TV all over the world. We raised $4.5 million like overnight. And that crash settled in, and there wasn't another dollar in the world for children's TV.
Really?
That wasn't a wholly owned property.
Even with that kind of backing, that kind of team, you couldn't get enough.
We had France 1, España 2, ZDF in Germany, BBC, CBeebies, which is the biggest kids. And they all loved it. We're ready to sign, but they can't sign till you fully have funding.
So they wouldn't fund it.
They can't. They will sign and pay once you're fully funded. They'll commit to the payment, but until you have your money, they've been burned before. People said, I got the money, and they didn't.
Wow.
So they don't till you have all the money.
Wow.
We couldn't raise another dollar. I tried for years. I gave it my all because I love this series.
I remember that. I remember back in the Andy's Airplane days, yeah.
It's a fun little, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, children's TV is not like it was. Like, I would literally have to spend probably $5 million just throwing it on the table and hope it worked. It's a very risky venture, children's TV now. So, at that same time I was doing Andy's, I had an agency called The Entity, and we were doing very well. We did hundreds of projects for MTV, Viacom, like did some really cool Dave Matthews Band stuff, some U2 stuff. Built a $3.5 million website for Ameriprise Financial. Like we were really crushing it.
Wow.
But then Andy's really took over. It's like, okay, this is the thing.
That's where your heart was. Yeah.
My heart was. And so when the '08 crash happened, I tried for 3.5 more years to try and make it work.
Yeah.
Put everything into it. Like, got to the point where, okay, Andy's ran out of runway.
Yeah.
So at that time, there was a huge boom going on in North Dakota, the oil boom, right? 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually about to be offered, I was in discussions with a big network marketing company to be their head of media, a VP of media.
Mm-hmm.
But the thought of doing that for this particular company and that particular owner, was just like, I had a friend work for them, and he's like, it's soul crushing to create for this company.
Well, did you consider going back and like just rebuilding the agency since that was going so well, or were you kind of like burned out with that?
I was kind of burned out, and I still was doing agency work, smaller stuff. But we were living in Idaho. We built this big, beautiful home up there, and I'd really moved away from Utah on all my real relationships.
Yeah.
Because things were going so good, I could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now here I am, 300 miles away, just really isolated.
Yeah.
So, but then this oil boom was happening in North Dakota, and my friend said, "JP, you make incredible food. You should go up there and feed oil workers. This guy's making $1 million selling pizzas to oil workers."
So this is a sidebar that I think we shouldn't skip over too quickly. Is like, you've also been a foodie like forever, right? You love making food. You've kind of just been really experimental and really creative with like your food, as creative as you are in other areas. And so one of your friends is like, dude, you do these crazy burritos. And that's where he's like, and this pizza guy is crushing it up in these oil fields, because it's not like, there's not a McDonald's or anything like close. Like they have nowhere to eat, basically, right? So they don't pack in a metal lunchbox with like PBJ in there. They have no food options, right?
Yeah. It's Walmart. That's about it.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is you say about my background. So I grew up a kid in San Diego. Excuse me. And I would put everything in a tortilla.
Mm-hmm.
I was the kid. There was 40 kids in our neighborhood. We'd come home from school. I'd make grilled bologna and cheese Velveeta quesadillas or PB&J quesadillas. Like grilled, buttered, like as an 8-year-old.
Wow.
So yeah, I put a lot of stuff in tortillas.
You were doing Uncrustables before Uncrustables.
Yes. Yeah.
Love it.
So that's when the idea for Sweeto Burrito was born.
Yeah.
So I created Sweeto Burrito and all the recipes and the brand and the whole thing. And lived in North Dakota for almost a year in a trailer, come home every month for a few days. That was torture. North Dakota is awful.
Okay.
Like, it was an awful place to live.
Because you were like even more isolated, completely isolated from your family. Yeah. You're living in a trailer.
I knew the minute I got there I'd made a mistake. But my father-in-law put money into this trailer, and I'm like, I just got to make this work.
Okay.
I can't just hand him the keys back and say, sorry, bro, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So it started working.
How did you experiment? Like, let's get into the creative process there. It's like, okay, you knew, okay, there's an opportunity for food here. How did you start to figure out like the recipes and like what was working and what wasn't? Was it just raw experimentation? Like you hung up a sign close to these oil fields and said, come get some burritos, and you were just chucking stuff in them? Or like, how did you figure all that out?
We had me and my brothers, my two brothers, Matt and Adam. We're just crazy foodies, all of us.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in my kitchen in our, home in Idaho, and just come up with fun names for burritos. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it came with the name first, and we figured out what would go in it. Sometimes we knew exactly what we wanted, and then we'd name it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all the recipes done and menus done and everything before we went to North Dakota.
Okay.
So we got there. There's a story. North Dakota is a story. So we had a great spot set up in Williston, which is the capital, in the oil boom, right next to Walmart. We'd have done $8,000 a day. About 3 weeks before we got there, they said, no, you can't be here. The city put a moratorium on any new food trucks.
No way.
So here I have this $100,000 trailer and nowhere to go. So I find this little town out south of Williston, Alexander, and I find a spot, and I'm going a rabbit hole here. I have PTSD from this because it was a nightmare.
Why did they shut it down? Did you ever figure it out?
I don't know. They wouldn't let anybody else in. There was couple ladies.
So even with the no, don't take no for an answer, like you pounded on that until like there's just no way, you're like out of here. At some point,
no has to be a thing, right? Yeah. So we end up in Alexander, and we're in a bad spot in Alexander, trying our best. And I'm standing on the highway waving people down to come in and try Life, Sweeto Burrito.
Yeah.
And people are like, this is incredible. So pretty soon, within like a few days, every CB radio they called the Bakken Oil Range was talking about that red trailer in Alexander.
Okay. So the food was a hit.
Food was a huge
So the viral word of mouth, they're like, okay, you got to go try this Sweeto Burrito.
So we started doing good. And then summer came, and they were closing the highway for like a month for road construction. Had a big detour around the city. And so we're going to be out of business. And I couldn't afford to be out of business and pay everybody to stay. So that happened to coincide with Sturgis. So the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. So I rolled down there, found a great spot, handed in my $10,000.
Okay, here's the advantage of you're in a trailer. You can move.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have like a long-term lease on a physical location. So you're like, all right, we're picking up. We're moving where the traffic is, right?
So we rolled down to Sturgis, set up. We're working 18-hour days, sweating. Just it's 130 degrees in that trailer.
Wow.
We're crushing it. And the news is coming, doing stories on us. It was obvious we had something then.
Yeah.
And then Sturgis ended, and people wanted to buy franchise rights for Sturgis to do it. There are big companies in Sturgis that want to be our Sweeto Burrito.
Yeah.
So we go. None of us want to be in North Dakota for another winter.
Yeah.
Coming up on winter, right? This is September, and we're all like, never.
Yeah.
So we think, well, do we roll home to Idaho Falls? Are people going to eat a burrito out of a trailer in Idaho Falls in the winter?
Yeah.
So we find a spot, and we thought, well, give it a shot. So we are literally across the street from Wendy's, across the street from a Costa Vida, just down the street from a Cafe Rio.
This is the one that was in the parking lot of that gas station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember going there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we set up, and we're literally, there's a Chick-fil-A a block away, everything, every option.
Yeah.
We crushed it for a trailer. We're doing $2,500 a day
Wow.
out of our trailer. It was great,
Yeah.
right? So then people started buying franchises, and then the Orem store happened with a franchisee, and things just started going great. And we actually had a chance there in year 3 to exit with a private equity firm wanted to buy it. But things were going so good with our franchisee, a couple of franchisees, and then we brought in some partners that just turned it into a hell.
Wow.
It just turned into a nightmare.
So this is round 2 of like, man, partnerships are really tricky, really tough, and you've learned some really hard lessons that way.
What's interesting is my agency that I had, the entity, great partnerships. Like the 3 of us, we were great. That's my first really just no issues friends, right? Just circumstance of the economy crashing took that agency out.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really learned the lessons still about being super careful on partners. The Sweeto one is one that really...
So you started building the franchise model.
We got to 19 stores.
And then what happened?
Well, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
What happened? Just infighting.
What can you share as far as terms of like lessons learned? And then I don't even know, like, are there still any Sweeto Burrito stores?
There's Orem, there's North Salt Lake, and they just are reopening Logan.
Okay.
So my dear friend Shane, who was my employee number 1 with me from day one, they just asked him to reopen North Logan.
Okay, so he's still working.
Franchisee,
Okay.
so it is his building.
Okay.
He will do it right. The food in Logan will be back to original recipe.
Very cool.
All of our, our white chick burrito, which was a brown sugar vinegar.
Yeah.
Just really cool creation.
Yeah.
That was just a food mistake in North Dakota, and I was just playing one day. We had this recipe for our white chick.
Yeah.
And the guy it was an independent guy who shipped me this rub for it.
Yeah.
He was always late. I'm like, I got to figure something else out. So I was back in the kitchen one day late afternoon, just playing with ingredients.
Yeah.
And this thing happened, and I'm like, guys, and they're like, what is that? So
yeah.
Anyway, the recipe will go back to all the originals in Logan.
Nice.
And probably follow suit with their other stores.
Very cool.
So
I want to go back a little bit. For those people who are listening to this who haven't tried a Sweeto Burrito or had a Sweeto Burrito, these were insane. I loved these burritos, and the concoctions that you'd like whip together to put inside are so not traditional burritos, like so good. But one of the other things I loved was your branding. Yeah. So it was luchador, kind of like this Mexican wrestler kind of thing, and they all had these crazy like names. How did that come about, and like how did you guys kind of decide on that branding? And was it just you and your brothers like in the kitchen kind of whipped up this branding, or where did that originate?
So my brother and I, we love coming up with names. We've come up with names actually for a lot of companies. So we still do that. So Matt still runs his agency, AdFire, which was the agency I started, and I brought him on and then gave to him when I went to do Sweeto. He's brilliant. He's an incredible guy. So we have a lot of fun coming up with names and brands for companies. And our brand partner is just an incredible, best of the best in terms of designing brands. Love the guy. And so we named it Sweeto Burrito because we love the alliteration of that. And then we thought, well, what kind of brand? So we talked to our brand guy, and I can't remember whether it was our brand partner or Matt.
Do you want to give the brand partner a shout out?
Yeah, Mark Orton.
Okay.
One of my favorite human beings ever.
Okay.
Incredible.
Shout out to Mark.
Yeah. And he's actually a partner in Life Cider. He's been part of almost everything I've done.
Very cool.
He's a trusted friend and incredible talent.
So you and your brother are talking to Matt Mark.
Somebody said, what about luchador?
Yeah.
Because lucha libre means no rules.
Yeah.
So I loved it because burrito with no rules, because I broke all the rules of burritos, right? Tater tots and buffalo chicken strips and onion rings. Well, let's name a couple of burritos so you understand. Yeah. So my favorites were the smokehouse, which was smoked chicken that we smoked in-house with real chunky bacon, cheddar cheese, cilantro ranch, and fresh cooked onion rings in a burrito. My second favorite was the carnivore, which was Korean bulgogi marinated steak with bacon, smoked chicken, sweet chili rice, pepper jack cheese, cilantro ranch, and sriracha.
My mouth's starting to water.
Yeah. And then I think most people's overall favorite's the buff chick, which was buffalo chicken strips. And I went through a lot of different chicken strips to find the one that I loved. And tater tots. I found these tater tots that were what they call B-grade tots. I don't even know if they make a B-grade tot anymore, but they had a lot more skin in them. They had peel. So they just really had great texture. So buffalo chicken strips, tater tots, cheddar cheese, cilantro ranch, and your choice of regular buffalo sauce or our sweet hot, which was buffalo sauce infused with brown sugar.
Yeah.
But the thing about the buff chick is when everything's cooked fresh, it's perfect. Yeah. If you get tots and somebody who's lazy and that the tots are sitting in the warmer for 20 minutes and the chicken strips, you just get this mush. Yeah. And if they're not careful how they apply the sauce, it can be garbage. Yeah. But when they're done right, like in our trailer days and even in all of our first years of the restaurant, there was never a French fry, a tater tot, or onion ring served that didn't come right out of the fryer. Yeah. Our warmers were like just temporary hold. Yeah. There was no long hold. Yeah. So everything was crispy and crunchy and perfect.
That's what I was going to say, and I'm glad you brought it up because the buff chick was my favorite. But over time, like when you kind of didn't have control over that process as much as you did in the beginning, like it wasn't as good. Yeah. To your point, like, but in the beginning when it was like fresh, I think you even made me a buff chick yourself, fresh, and I was like, it blew my mind. It was like so good.
I was so passionate about it. Like, and if you were in the restaurant when I was there, every burrito. Like, interesting story. Our Woods Cross store started off really good, and it was dying. And these partners I brought in that were just a nightmare. They had me doing other things, and I finally am like, guys, I got to go fix this store. So I go into the store. They got ticket times 12 minutes at the drive-thru. I mean, like, terrible. Yeah. So I go in and I told the whole team, okay, guys, this is on Monday. I said, by Friday night, you guys are going to be blown away with what we can accomplish. So I figured out who was best at what. I made sure everybody had headsets on all the time because that headset communication was key. So if someone's taking an order at the drive-thru and I'm on the fryer and I hear that order, I already know what to put down. So by the time so we go to Friday night and we have back to back to back $1,200 to $1,500 hours. 2-minute ticket times. Nice. In the restaurant. Like so fast. Yeah. And our drive-thru, nobody waited more than like 45 seconds. Like we crushed it. And when everybody's like at the end of the shift, I didn't know that was possible. I said, it's just communication, guys. Yeah. So I was really passionate about it. I wanted it to be good. It's sad to me that it's
hard to preserve that as you get like further and further removed from it.
And it's hard now. I think restaurants in general right now are so hard. You got so many young people who just don't want to work and don't show up. And the care level it's not like the same. I couldn't be in restaurants. People do it well now. Hats off to you, man, because you are a wizard.
Yeah. Yeah. Savory Fun, to give them a shout out, they've kind of figured out a model that they've been able to replicate, but not across every single one of their restaurant types. So I think they've also had to like trial and error, figure out like what types of food and what types of combinations like that fit that model really well, that can be like fast casual, but like pretty consistent. You can maintain the quality because other ones were, they've struggled with other ones. Right. Yeah. But food is obviously really, really hard. Yeah. So Sweeto Burrito, you get into this, like you're starting to franchise, you're starting to grow, the partnership thing is rough. Like how did you leave that, or how did you exit that, or what was the scenario there? And then like what lessons do you think you took away from that experience?
I finally just said to myself, I'm a creator. I'm not creating. I feel like a shell of myself. My health was terrible. I was very overweight, eating way too many buff chicks, too many tater tots.
You can see, like, I've had plenty of buff chicks.
My health was terrible.
Yeah.
And, I had almost died from an acid reflux in my sleep. Gave me a secondary infection, pneumonia.
Wow.
About killed me. And I'm like, I'm done. So I said to the partners, the investors, I said, guys, I'm out. Buy me out, cheap, best deal you ever get. And it was a good deal. I just wanted away.
Yeah.
So I took a small check and walked away and started, creating other things. And one of those things by accident was, this Life Cider thing. But I don't know when you want to talk about that, but that's
now's a good time.
Life Cider happened as a result of my poor health.
Okay.
So when I started to fix it, when I survived that, bad pneumonia from acid reflux, I said, I got to fix this. What can fix it? And the data back even 10 years ago wasn't like the data now on apple cider vinegar, acetic acid, which is the key ingredient. Very anecdotal. Even 10 years ago, goes back to all the way back to Hippocrates. They were using it. Roman soldiers were using it, drinking it, right? So it has a real history, but the science of it has really come a long way, even in the last 5-6 years. So I started drinking apple cider vinegar, watered down, never drink it straight.
What were some of the key benefits?
Well, yeah, let me jump into that. I'll tell you why, but let me give a little more history.
Okay.
So started drinking it, tasted terrible. I started playing with it because, I'm a recipe guy, right? I'm a flavor guy, so I had to make it taste good and still be healthy.
Yeah.
I played with it for years until finally my family wouldn't leave it alone in the fridge. And it's pissing me off because I don't want to make it every day. I don't want to, melt the honey and put all the stuff in it and make my jug of stuff for the fridge.
Yeah.
And they're like, Dad, we love it. My wife's like, it's good. I'm like, okay, well, if you guys are going to drink it anyway, I'm going to just start dumping vitamins in it because you guys won't take your vitamins.
Yeah.
So I started dumping vitamin C and squeezing in D3 drops, and I thought it tastes terrible.
Yeah.
And you couldn't taste it at all. It just disappeared in the vinegar and the lemon juice.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I looked at my son's soda stream on the counter one day. I'm like, I'm going to carbonate this. And my brother Matt was over that day, and we're like, whoa, this is good. Actually, we ordered in some flavors, started playing with different flavors, and then we carbonated it. And we're like, this is the thing. So we did our name game, and we started playing names in the kitchen right there. Cider this and blah, blah. And he goes, what about Life Cider? I was like, there's no way that's available.
Yeah.
Looked online. Got it. Trademarkable. Got it.
LifeCider.com was just openly available. That's amazing.
So Life Cider was born. This is end of 2018.
Yeah.
And we thought we're going to go in the beverage industry. Took me about 4 months to go.
And just like you kind of went over this a little fast, so I want to double down on this a little bit. Like this product market fit was you had originally just made this for your own health reasons.
Yeah.
And then you had to play with it and play with it and play with it and tweak it for years. Okay, I was going to say
no intention of making a product.
Okay, but then when your family started stealing it out of the fridge, even your teenagers, that's when you knew like, okay, maybe there's something here.
I didn't think then. It was still kind of ticking me off. So I put the vitamins in it. The day that I thought this is a product is we ordered a bunch of organic flavors in, played with those. And not even that day, like a few days later, weeks later, I looked at my son's soda stream and carbonated it. And we're like, okay,
so the combination of the carbonation suddenly was like,
not
oh my
like
gosh.
Super carbonated,
Yeah, because I was going to say, this isn't like burn your throat or like kick you carbonation, right?
No. So, end of 2018, create the brand, the original brand of Life Cider. It looks a little different than it does now. It took about 5 months of trying to figure out how to make a beverage to realize this is where the big boys and girls sit. This is the big kids table. Takes millions of dollars and all the right connections, and I didn't have either of those. Yeah. So I sat on the shelf. I was done, literally over. And then 3 years later, a friend of mine from the Basketball Hall of Fame in Arizona State calls me. He said, hey, bro, send me some of your Life Cider stuff, your vinegar stuff. I was like, dude, that dream is dead.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. He had tasted it because I was in Arizona, in that 5 months I was trying to do it, and did a little event down there. He tried it and liked it, and but he calls me and says, I want to give it to my distributor friend. I said, that dream is dead. Yeah. He's like, just send me some. So, I like this guy. I'm like, okay, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I bottled some up, shipped it down, and the distributor called me and said, I can sell the hell out of this.
Wow.
I was like, Joe, don't jerk my chain. I know it's a good
Like,
product.
don't get my hopes up
I know
because
it's a
of
good product, but I do not have what it takes. He said, I'll help. So that gave me the courage to try.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my COO, we put some money together, did our first set of test cans back like a year ago, November,
Mm-hmm.
and put, I think, 5,000 cans or so together and started shipping out to some people. And I was super fortunate that friends of friends knew these guys who were huge in the beverage and food distribution world.
Mm-hmm.
They had launched thousands of products in their 35 years. These guys don't touch startups, right? They're very successful. They loved the product, and they really liked me and my COO and said, we will help you. So since then, we've literally raised $3 million. Most of my investors are NFL players, so Dak Prescott, Brock Hoffman, Tyler Biadasz, Aviante Collins, Matt Waletzko, TJ Bass, Tyler Smith, some incredible guys who have become like my brothers. We've done some events together. And I'm having this journey that I could never imagined.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like today, we just won a big national award out in the East Coast. My guy sent the picture.
Nice.
And our distribution's really blowing up across the country in multiple states. We'll, of course, have a big run in Texas just because we have, Dallas Cowboys as investors. And they have a lot of support there. But here in Utah, I have so many friends and family. And Harmon's just brought us on. So we're in half the Harmons in the state as of today. We'll be in all of them by end of June.
Well.
And some other retailers are close to bringing us in. So,
and are you doing direct to consumer at all, like online sales
online.
now?
You can order on the website. You can order on Amazon. But now the biggest piece is, you look at any online, you look at any drink company.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 or 6% of their overall sales is online.
Yeah.
So as much as I love people to buy online, I really want you to support the retailers. Who take a shot.
I think somebody else was talking about this on another podcast I was just listening to, but beverages are one of those things specifically that someone's probably, it's probably going to lead with either exposure at an event or like in a retail situation, right? Like nobody's going to buy it online as the first exposure to it. They've had to like try it at a friend's or buy it in a store.
That's
and people will experiment with it in a store.
Yeah.
Like I might buy a 6-pack or buy like a small thing just because, that looks really interesting and I'll give it a whirl. But it's weird that like I don't think about that like online. Online feels like a little bit more of like, I got to know what I'm buying and I'm for sure going to like do that, right? But
we've been surprised at how many people will have spent the money to buy a case, because that's what we sell it in online, is a case. It's expensive, right?
Yeah.
It's like $3.99 plus shipping. And we eat most of the shipping, so there's a little bit of shipping. But actually shipping rates just went down, so we're about to change a lot. Okay. And at Harmon's, we're at $2.99.
Is there even I hadn't thought about this. Like, is there even a concept of a return with a beverage if you buy it online? It's like
buy a case,
you're committed.
You're committed, right? So we understand it's a big commitment to try it. The KSL article came out last year about my event at BevNet. So I want to back up a little bit. Two things. First, I want to tell you why apple cider vinegar.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'll tell you about the BevNet story and why the brand is what it is now.
Okay.
So why apple cider vinegar? It has acetic acid. Acetic acid does two things. Acetic acid, for me at the time, overweight and acid reflux. What is acid reflux? It's actually when you don't have enough acid in your stomach. It's not because you have too much.
That seems counterintuitive.
So when you take an antacid, I won't mention any by name.
Yeah.
You're actually neutralizing the good acid, what little good acid you have.
Okay.
Which is why it comes back in an hour or so. So acetic acid actually raises the acidity level to where you can digest your food and reduces, and in some places like me and several people I know, including our investors, our Dallas Cowboy investors, they're investors because they got rid of their acid reflux.
Wow.
These linemen have 10 to 12,000 calorie a day diets.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah.
And they had acid reflux all through college. Some of them as early as 13 years old. They were big guys.
Yeah.
So you can get rid of acid reflux when you add apple cider vinegar to a meal. A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, watered down, never drink it straight, is what you need with a meal.
Why not drink it straight?
Too acidic.
Okay.
It's actually way too acidic.
Okay.
So a tablespoon watered down at least 10 to 1 or in a nice 8-ounce glass of water is perfect.
Okay.
So have that with a meal. Raise that level of acidity. Secondly, acetic acid, the same thing, also is now proven to raise your insulin sensitivity by a minimum of a third. Some clinical trials now are showing up to 2/3 on some foods.
Wow.
Like oatmeals. Oatmeal is a terrible food, by the way. Spikes your insulin bad. So what happens when your blood sugar spikes and insulin secreted? What is the process there? What is insulin's job? At its base, insulin comes in and tells your body, hey, we're just going to focus on the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take the other complex carbs and the fats and the proteins. We're going to store that as fat. We'll get to that later. Let's just focus on this sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher your blood sugar spike, the higher your insulin spike, the more fat you store with every meal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, some big Instagrammers now who are, medical doctors saying, hey, if you'll just add a tablespoon of apple-cider-vinegar to your meal, you don't even really have to change your meal as much as you think you would.
Wow.
Because you're not going to store the fat. You're going to process the food better. You're going to get more nutrients out of it. So ACV's time in the sun is really now, which is really interesting that now is when I was encouraged to, go for it.
Yeah.
And have the right people in place to do it. So that's why apple-cider-vinegar.
Okay.
And now I'll go back to the BevNet story. So last June, I got invited to compete at the new beverage competition in Manhattan called BevNet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going there next week.
Nice.
Just again, not to compete, just to hang out with people I know in the industry now.
Mm-hmm.
So I go there as a nobody with the brand the way it used to be. It had an apple in the front and it said apple cider vinegar lemonade.
Yeah.
So the head buyer for Sprouts, head buyer for Whole Foods, senior VP of Coke were the judges on the panel that judged all these beverages that were up for, best new beverage of the year. And they all said, and this is an aggregate of their comments, but this is their comments really, love the product, incredible, it's going to do great in the marketplace, but the apple in the front and the word lemonade makes us think we're going to drink an apple juicy lemonade, something sweet, but it's really tangy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to confuse customers as they first start drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So between June and September, which is Expo East, which is pretty much the second biggest beverage show of the year in Philadelphia, we changed the brand to the new brand, and I actually lowered the calories because I've been drinking, in essence, what was a 55-calorie version of this for years and years. That's what I loved. But when we look at the marketplace, most of these functional beverages were 30 to 35 calories.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So I went through the exercise of doing it. I got it to 30. But then I was terrified. When I had my first batch in cans, I came home. I was sitting in the car actually sweating. I was so nervous because my wife will tell me the truth every time.
Is this good or not?
And her friend, they were sitting out front of the house in her friend's car. And I walk over with some cold Life Ciders, and I hand it to her friend, our dear friend April. And April cracks open a black cherry, takes a sip, and she goes, and I was like, oh, I just died inside. I thought,
this is terrible.
She goes, it's better.
Wow.
I was like, I just
huge.
Melted.
Yeah.
And everybody felt the same way.
Yeah.
So, a few days later, we were at Expo East with every major retailer in our booth. Like 9 of the top 12 retailers in the country were in our booth in the first hour of the show.
Wow.
That doesn't happen.
Did you pre-market that, or they kind
our
of
guys are connected to everybody, so they sent out emails to everyone. So you got to come try this. They don't usually do that.
Yeah.
They all came. We had major retailers in the booth at the same time with each other, all giving each other the evil eye.
That's great because it creates a little FOMO for you. It's like, who's gonna if these guys are doing it, I got to do it, and I got to go first or whatever.
So the response has been huge.
Yeah.
And now we just finished Expo West in March in LA. It was incredible. And so we've been picked up by all the biggest retailers in the country, not biggest retailers, distributors. So now retailers are onboarding us in multiple states, and now I'm actually scared. Is it going too fast? Right?
Because now it's like, you can't have a runaway horse, right?
Yeah.
So this might be a dumb question. I'm not much of a food expert or scientist or anything, but I'm trying to get a lot more protein in my, all forms of consumption.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, so this has 0 protein. Like, how much do you know about protein in beverages? And is it a really hard thing? I've wondered, couldn't just all my favorite beverages, why could a Dr. Pepper even have a bunch of protein in it? Or is that impossible or hard? Or
yeah,
okay,
you could. There's liquid.
What makes that so
incredible.
challenging? Do you know?
It's better now than it's ever been. There's the technology. The liquid proteins are great now.
Yeah.
So
I love Fairlife milk.
Me too. I like their protein.
It tastes so good, and they've got the Core Power protein,
Core Powers
42 grams of protein in a drink. It's insane. Yeah. But then it makes me wonder, and again, this is my stupid questions, but can you taste protein? Is it super expensive? Could Dr. Pepper have a protein Dr. Pepper and it tastes exactly like Dr. Pepper? I'm super curious about that.
I don't know about Dr. Pepper. I know with a Life Cider, I can make it taste exactly like Life Cider because the vinegar and the lemon juice are really great masking agents. I mean, They taste great in a drink like this.
Yeah.
So that's like when the vitamins disappeared in it, you couldn't taste it. Same sort of thing with protein.
Okay. So maybe they're in the future. This is my consumer request is like Core Power Life Cider or something, right? Like the protein Life Cider. Because I'm looking for ways all the time to supplement a little bit of protein while keeping the calories low. So, I've kind of been learning a lot because I've got to lose like 60 or 65 pounds still from where I'm at. And what my strategy is always like reduce the calories, increase the protein so I can get minimal calories a day. I'm trying to target 1,500 for me, for my weight and my BMR and everything. But I've got to also get like 170 to 180 grams of protein in a day,
I do
which is hard. How do you do that? Without just eating like 3 steaks. I mean, it's hard. I don't know if those of you out there, like it is hard to get that much protein. That is a ton of protein, right?
It's changed everything though. I mean, like I was already healthy, right? I was in a place with apple-cider-vinegar where I was healthy.
Yeah.
But when I realized you got to up that protein, so I love the puff bars from Built. I think their puff bars are great. And I do the Fairlife, the Core Power protein. I'll do a couple of those a day. And then I love chicken. And a lot of chicken, a little steak, and so I just get it in every day.
You get like over 200. That's insane.
Yeah,
because it's been so hard for me. I love the Fit Crunch bars. They're the best tasting. I love those. But, I think you only get like 20 grams of protein. So I can't eat like 10 of those a day or something.
There's too many calories in those for me.
That's the problem is like I've been learning the ratio has to be about 10 times the calories as the protein. So if you're only getting 23 grams of protein, you can only get like 200 calories in a thing. If you go over that, like if you're 23 grams of protein, but you're like 500 calories or something, like it's that's blowing it out of proportion, right? So I'm trying to find ways to reduce the calories, increase the protein. And to those listeners out there, like I've learned a lot about this and I've got this friend, Jordan, who's been teaching me a lot about this stuff. The deal is I'm not trying to be some muscle-bound like meathead, but if you don't have the right amount of grams of protein, then your body starts eating muscle, and then the less muscle that you have, it reduces your metabolism. And so you can lose weight, but not lose fat. It's burning into your muscle. And then over time, like your metabolism gets slower and slower, and it's harder and harder to burn fat. So if you're like me, like I've got to burn, like I got to get rid of like 40 pounds of fat on my body. The only way for me to do that is to maintain enough protein that my body isn't like consuming my muscle and using the protein to build muscle. How many calories a day do you have? I'm shooting for 1,500.
Dude, that's so low.
It is, but I've got to create a pretty big caloric deficit in order to like burn that fat. Right?
I'm trying to think what my day is. I'll tell you what my day is. How tall are you?
6 foot. And right now I'm about 230.
So I'm 1,891 calories, 213 grams of protein, 63 grams of fat, and 118 carbs.
So you're about 1,800 calories?
1,900.
1,900, yeah. So if I can get to 15, that creates enough deficit where I can burn like 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of fat a week without cutting into muscle. And so I can lose the right type of weight. And head towards my goal and everything. But man, I did not realize like how hard you have to be. Very strategic about getting that much protein per day. So I
also have a Muscle Tech whey or isolate protein that I make too.
Like the protein shakes and stuff. Yeah, I like those. So Life Cider. I know that was a huge tangent on protein, but I've been curious about like can't the drinks that I love contain a bunch of protein to help me like get towards that goal, or does it ruin the taste profile, or is it like too expensive?
I could literally
add protein
to Life Cider and you wouldn't taste it at all.
And is protein a really expensive ingredient to add in a drink?
It's not too bad. But I could easily go with crazy SKU proliferation with Life Cider. Life Cider can create so many products. We actually have an incredible products roadmap. Like there's a lot of things that Life Cider will be. This is the first of them.
Right.
We're actually launching.
You've got 5 flavors right now. And then is this the only size that you do right now?
It's 12 ounce.
And then how much per can does it cost?
So like at Harmon's it's $2.99.
Per can.
On our website it's more.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to lower it, though, because our next production run, our costs are coming way down because we're doing almost 1 million cans.
Yeah.
So it's going to get so we can discount in places. Here's the thing. I want Life Cider to be everywhere life's happening. I want it to be everywhere. Like, I think, Coca-Cola, they have the mission, be within 10 feet of every consumer at any point.
Yeah.
My goal is I want to be everywhere food's being consumed.
Yeah. So you've got to get down to like $1 or less, 50 cents or whatever per can, which might be really, really hard to get to that.
Oh,
right.
No, I'm not talking Coke level distribution.
Okay.
You never get that. There's too many important things in this.
Right.
I mean, it's a full stack of vitamin C, D3, B12, zinc.
And your hard costs are more than that.
Organic apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
Right. Organic, incredible lemon juice.
Okay.
Like, there's real stuff in this can, but our costs have come way down just at scale.
Yeah.
And even for a new company, we've done a great job, me and my COO, of sourcing products. Luckily, I've been sourcing these and looking at these products for a long time, 10 years. I've been finding products. So we started out of the gate much lower than you would typically for a new company like us.
Yeah.
But we're even getting them lower. So I want this to be everywhere people can have and be accessible.
Yeah.
Price-wise. And my goal is to have someone have apple cider vinegar with every meal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expecting somebody to drink 3 of these a day. That's too expensive.
Yeah.
Although we have a lot of customers who are. They love it. And the emails and things we get are so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And the comments we get from people about what it's doing for their health, especially people's acid reflux.
Yeah.
As I go around the country and I do these little man on the street interviews, people love it. First of all, it's like 99% everybody's, oh, wow, oh, yeah. Go to our Instagram, watch some of those interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just real. I have none of these, yuck, I hate this. That never happens. But what happens off camera is people say, because we're talking off camera about acid reflux, it's an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
People are literally, everybody has it. Like it's such a, not everybody, it's such a huge number of people, teenagers, got, big guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little guys, little girls, everybody. So I tell people, hey, take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have 3 Life Ciders. Don't have any Life Ciders, whatever. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
For this person I'm talking to, I just want them to be healthy and happy and solve this problem.
Again, tablespoon mixed with like 8 ounces of water.
Yeah. Put a little lemon juice, a little stevia, whatever your favorite, kind of like sweet, non-toxic sweetener is, just so it's palatable.
Yeah.
But have that with every meal. That will get rid of acid reflux. Secondly, I tell people, I'm not a doctor, so take it for what it's worth. This is what worked for me and what's worked for people I told. For the next 30 days, while you're kind of getting this under control, get nightshade vegetables and everything with lectins out of your diet. So as important as tomatoes are and as magical as they are, and red bell peppers, green bell peppers, look up the word lectins. Lectins are like little microscopic razor blades. They rip up your gut.
Really?
They're really hard on you.
Okay.
Even though all the nutrients, things that are important for you from those, just get them out of your diet for a little bit to get this inflammation under control.
Okay.
And then the last thing I tell people to do, I found myself, and now I understand why, is let's say it's late at night, I'm having a business dinner, right? Of course, I'm always going to have Life Cider.
Mm-hmm.
But when I don't, I'll ask for a tablespoon from the restaurant I'm at. But also, I would finish my meals back when I had acid reflux with 2 or 3 slices of cucumber. Why? Why did it work? I didn't notice it worked. I just noticed one day, because I would always have, when you have acid reflux, you burp a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And typically people like that burp up exactly what they ate in concentrated, terrible smelling form.
Yeah.
Probably an overshare. So.
Yeah. There's probably people out there like nodding their heads like, oh yeah, that sucks.
If you take,
I've been there.
Yeah. So I noticed sometimes, a few times when I had cucumber with that meal, the acid reflux, the burping wasn't as bad. It was just cucumber. It wasn't like,
So that was just like accidental discovery. You didn't read that or whatever. You're like, oh, that's interesting.
The burp wasn't fire. It was cucumber.
Okay.
I was like, what's going on? Well, it's because cucumbers are so highly alkaline.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of making that, it was taking down that burn.
Yeah.
So that's my recommendation to people. Take it. I'm not a doctor, right? But it works.
Okay.
So apple cider vinegar, get rid of the nightshades for a month or whatever it takes to get it under control, and finish your meal with cucumber.
That's so interesting.
Tomatoes-based products late at night, bad choice. And chocolate. Unfortunately, dark chocolate and chocolates are really hard on acid reflux.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they have lectins as well, or like what do they
It's funny you ask that. I don't even know why. I just know if you read the literature, chocolate is one of those things that is really bad for acid reflux.
Especially at night.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. You
we just went
have
down this whole journey.
created,
I'm like,
yeah, this
that's
is so
crazy.
cool. It's so
I
cool.
don't
In
think I've
fact,
done
I'm learning. I'm trying to take mental notes here because I don't have a notepad, but I will remind myself about this. So you've built some really cool brands over your career so far. What does it take, and what have you learned about building a meaningful brand? What have you learned about that, and how have you done that?
What's interesting is most of the things I've just created because you heard the story, right? Everything starts with brand. When you have an idea, you got to name it. It's like, you got to write in your journal. You got to write down your goals. For a brand to be successful and to be a thing, it has to be, you got to name it, find a great name, and then get that artwork done. Find somebody who can do the artwork that can make that vision come to life. Because to go raise money without a brand, with just an idea, people see a brand, then they can associate it, and they can wrap their mind around it. It becomes real at that point.
Yeah.
Even before it's real.
So it's the beginnings of, it feels like a story. You've been a good storyteller around, like even Andy's Airplanes, you're combining this love of flight and kind of the adventure and exploration around that with, like, he was flying to different destinations and learning about things related to those destinations, right?
Yeah.
So it's creating the brand and the storyline. When you think about Life Cider, what is the story? How do you think about building like a long-term lasting brand around Life Cider?
What's interesting is
it's got a great name and you got this great domain.
Yeah.
Got some artwork, but where does it go from there? How do you build on that foundation?
Well, not only is this beverage wonderful, and I'm so grateful for it, for what it's done for me, not the business side, the functional side, and what I'm seeing it do for other people and starting to be at scale, the emails and so forth coming in. But apple-cider-vinegar can be in so many different types of products. So the product roadmap, as I mentioned, for this is big. So a lot of incredible things that this can do. But typically with beverage, you're in it 3 to 5 years, and the big boys are going to come along and acquire you. You're going to watch the trajectory, and they get to a place where they let you have your fun, and you're going to sell to one of them, right? It's just there's very few brands that really make it as their own thing. Yeah, and just that's the way it works. Yeah. So it's a 3 to 5 year run, and you go as fast as you can, and then you try and do a deal at the end where you say to a big acquirer, "I will sell to you, but you have to keep it like this." Yeah. You can't
try
change
to preserve the brand.
You can't change these ingredients. You can't make it toxic. You can't switch like some major. You see some big stuff in the news right now about a major energy brand that uses, like so many do, cyanocobalamin, which is the terrible version of B12. I'm a nobody. I know you shouldn't use cyanocobalamin. I know you should use methacobalamin, the expensive, quote, expensive good kind, right? It costs maybe a quarter of a penny difference.
Really?
If that, to do, and not even that, an eighth of a penny to have the good kind. Why would you have something toxic?
It's not like it's twice as much or even 25% as much.
Whoever I sell this to at some point, I wouldn't sell unless I knew and contractually it was stated that you will keep this product good. Yeah. Because I'm on a mission. I mean, I grew up with a diabetic dad. I watched him almost die so many times. Really traumatic stuff. But America we are 51% of America right now is diabetic or pre-diabetic. By 2030, we'll be 70% of America will be diabetic or pre-diabetic. Sugar is the reason. Yeah. Okay? Sugar and not managing your insulin sensitivity. And that's apple-cider-vinegar, to my knowledge, is the only natural remedy that has any effect on blood sugar spike. Wow. So use it. Drink a Life Cider. Go get some apple-cider-vinegar out of the grocery store. Mix it with some water. But change that part of your life. And it's interesting, too. Do you know that 90% of your serotonin is created in your gut?
I did not.
So what's serotonin do? It manages your mood. So when your gut's messed up, you're likely to not be as happy. Yeah. So when you get your gut right, and apple-cider-vinegar can absolutely be a huge portion of getting that right, you change a whole lot about your life. Yeah. So that's my mission is, hey, recognize sugar is killing you. Sugar feeds cancers. And like my son this morning, I took him to school before I came here, and he was coughing. He has a cold. And I said, "Julian, did you eat too much sugar?" He goes, "Does that make me sick?" I was like, "Yeah, it makes you sick. You hear me talk about it all the time." Yeah. But sugar makes you sick. makes you overweight, makes you, all the ills come from inflammation and sugar.
Yeah. This is interesting because a previous guest, Carlin Call, the founder of Just Ingredients, like her story was very similar. She was struggling with severe depression, like almost suicidal depression. And she talks about that openly. And it's what prompted her and inspired her to create a product and then create a company around that. And they've been tremendously successful. But it came out of this thing that like, her blood sugar and blood and her gut were messed up with diet and stuff.
Yeah.
And almost anybody at that point in time treating depression, it was like either drugs that you had to take or it was like mental stuff. Like you're struggling with issues. And so you're trying to like have like more psychotherapy or like a psychological approach. And then she found this one doctor that said, no, it's none of that. Like your gut is messed up and it's what you're taking in your body and putting on your body and in the form of like makeups and lotions and that, but like what you're eating and everything. And it's so interesting to think about that, how gut health has a huge impact on mood and energy level and just general feelings of like happiness or depression and how they kind of interact with each other. It's
all starts in the gut.
Crazy.
Interesting story. So I briefly mentioned it, but our NFL investors, right? Brock Hoffman is a center for the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
He's a son of a close friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
We sent him a bunch of Life Cider just to help.
Mm-hmm.
About 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks into drinking, we sent him a bunch of cases. Mm-hmm. He called and was talking to my CEO, John Walbrecht, who's been the CEO of a lot of very major companies, Doc Martens and Timberland and Fjallraven and Spider Ski Gear and a bunch of. He's a neighbor and a friend, and he saw that this thing was going to scale. And I brought him to me. So this thing's going to scale. He said, you're right. I said, I don't have the management experience to handle this. Will you help? He said, I will help. So I'm really lucky to have a CEO like that. So Brock calls John and says, what's the medicine in this? John's like, it's no medicine. It's just acetic acid.
Yeah.
He goes, no, seriously, what's the medicine? John's like, acetic acid.
Yeah.
He said, my acid reflux is gone. A bunch of my buddies, we all want to invest. Can we invest? Of course you can invest, right?
Yeah.
We were in a raise. So he invested, and then that led to Steve Benjamin, who's the number 4 nutritionist in the NFL. He's the head nutritionist for the Atlanta Falcons. He loves it. He was just part of our big NFL press release. A bunch of NFL teams are drinking it. Like everybody in the Falcons drink it. Like literally last week or before the long weekend, we got a call from Steve. He says, hey, I know a big request, but we're out. Could you drive some up from North Carolina, where a bunch of my team are, to Atlanta? Because the guys don't want to go home for the weekend without it. So
that's huge.
It's so cool. We have country music star investors. We got Joe Don Rooney from Rascal Flatts. We got a few other big names that are about to put a little money in. They're pretty exciting. I can't say till they do.
Yeah.
But this all started because of gut health, because of what it did for Brock's gut and his buddies.
Yeah.
So I've shot some content with all of our investor guys. They're incredible, like my brothers now. So the ride this is turning into is incredible.
That's phenomenal.
But it will be a vehicle. These guys can tell a story to the world that your average influencer can't. They can say, I eat 12,000 calories a day. I have this problem, and this solved it. And here's a way for all of you, whether it's a Life Cider or just getting vinegar into your life. These guys can have a conversation that can accomplish my goal, which is helping millions, hopefully, of people manage their blood sugar better and get their life in control.
That's so cool. Now, you said a couple of things there that I want to circle back to as well. Is like you talked about bringing in a CEO, so you're not the CEO.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you came to this realization? And I think it's a very wise, kind of mature thing, the ability, the self-awareness to be able to say like, hey, I'm a creator. I love the creation part. I'm not the guy to be the CEO for that. Like, I think that's a huge decision. And then, I mean, was it just fortuitous that you're like neighbors and friends with this guy, like to find the right guy to do this? Like, how did that process go?
Well, first of all, I brought in the wrong people in the previous things. I've become much more critical of the kind of people I associate with.
Yeah.
You are the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
And luckily, John and his wife is one of my wife's best friends. My wife said 5 years ago, I wish John Walbrecht could be our CEO and something we do.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's never happening. But John's my friend, and I just kind of gave him information.
Never happening because like that would just be too hard to get.
What company would he be interested in? Right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And but gave him information along the way about what's going on, and he'd give me feedback. You know, just my buddy, give me some feedback. And then when we had this, I brought my whole team in for an offsite meeting, and I said, "We come for an afternoon." He came for the afternoon. And I could tell he was impressed because I have the rest of my team is world class. These guys are the who's who. They launched thousands of products. Rails pasta sauce and Stubbs barbecue sauce, Twining teas, Bigelow teas, like a lot of products. So they're impressive people. And I said to Jon, I think this thing's going to scale. And that's when he said, yeah. And I said, would you help? He said, I will make time for this.
That's very cool.
Part of it's because the product's great and the company's good and the team's good, but also he's my friend and he kind of knows the history I've been through. He knows what I've been through with the wrong people.
So was he kind of retired, or was he doing something? So you stole him away.
In lots of things. Jon's the greatest multitasker in history. Jon is, yeah. So he's part of several brands.
Okay.
And again, on the day-to-day stuff, me and the team are doing, but he's right there listening, watching, and there's always wise stuff coming out.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I know what I'm not good at, and I know what I'm good at. And I've always tried to bring in the right people.
Yeah.
This time I finally have. I really, truly
figured it out.
An a-hole free zone right now. I have a great team, and we all are good friends, and we're all on the same page. So it's a pretty incredible environment that's happening right now with Life Cider.
As you look back on that entire story, like your professional career and all the ups and downs and the crazy things that you've been through, what would you say are like 2 or 3 of the most meaningful lessons that you've learned so far? Like, what is the takeaway from everything that you've been through?
For me, it's passion. I do things I'm passionate about. Obviously, it looks a little crazy, the number of different things I've done. No rhyme or reason, just I get into it, right? And I love it, and I just go for it. But to me, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. I'm more passionate about this than anything because it actually there's a real mission behind it, not just creating a company and doing something that's really mission driven. But this is about people. It is all about the people you associate with. Like there's some opportunities I have right now with some folks, and I just know they're not it. And so, you know what? I learned to say no. How's that? The big takeaway is learning to say no. Not that person, not that opportunity, not that direction.
So here, it's an interesting mix of like you're really quick to, which I think I'm complimenting is a great thing, is like you're quick to like get into something, be excited about it and get behind it, but mixing that with like also being able to say like, no, not to that, not to that. You're not just saying yes to anything and everything that comes along, right? So I think that's interesting, and maybe only the type of thing that someone learns through lots of experience and maybe some, hard lessons along the way.
Yeah.
When you look back on a lot of these things, it sounds like you found the same passion that you found in the sign language, like, that series. Like this is something that you can be super joyful, super passionate about because of the mission that's behind it. And this is, acid reflux, something I've experienced quite a bit. It sucks. It's like, it's horrible. Yours was even more extreme. Like you almost died or like had, some serious stuff. A lot of people struggle with it. I think as America and the world generally become like more overweight and our diets become more like processed and stuff, it's just more and more like potential for acid reflux. So that's super interesting to me. So now you're behind this thing that you feel passionate about. There's a mission there, but you also know that the likelihood is like there's a window where you're probably going to get acquired. You're going to try to make the acquisition be something that like they'll preserve that. What's after that? You got a notebook full of ideas of like 10 other things that you want to do, or where do you go?
I have a notebook full of ideas and brand names and funny things I thought about over the years. I don't know which, if any of them I'll do. I'll do something, but my goal is with a successful exit with Life Cider in years to come, that I would just have the right teams that can execute on my idea. Wouldn't so much be grinding like today. After here, I'm going to a Harmon's to go, do some taste testing and share with people. And I love that. It feeds me. But at some point, I can only go to so many stores that we open. I can only do so much. So boots on the ground, I would probably do less of that and just more high-level creation. But I also have this passion. I don't know if I know a lot of people have ideas and have no idea how to execute them.
Yeah.
And I would love to have some, like the inventorshelp.com kind of thing,
Yeah.
but without feeling scammy
Yeah.
and not wanting anything from it.
Yeah.
Just literally, I'd love to have an organization that just helps people take their ideas and make them work.
Okay.
And put the teams in place to make great ideas happen.
Yeah.
And a little bit of funding, and our piece of that property is just enough to pay for itself.
Yeah.
And give people a real opportunity. That's
kind of perpetual kind of incubator for great ideas and help people figure that stuff out. I think that's super cool. And I know there's been various groups that have tried that or done that. Some of them are more predatory than others. So it's cool. I love the idea and love the mission. And it's something I could get behind personally too, because part of the passion for creating this podcast is like, how do I take successful entrepreneurs, specifically consumer product creators that have built something from nothing? I've mostly been a software guy my whole career, and I have this grand fascination and admiration for consumer product creators, because to me, software feels easy. I mean, there's challenges with it, but like making software seems so much easier than like a physical product that you have to get inventory and ingredients and or like things and then put it together, manufacture it, get it out there, ship it, and then deal with like returns and store placement. And just, it seems so crazy complex. And what I've loved in all these things is like, most of these successful entrepreneurs I've interviewed had zero experience with consumer goods, zero educational background with it. Much like yourself, were creators and creative people, and largely were probably trying to solve their own problem. Like that's been a common theme of like, I had this problem and I was just super passionate about solving that problem, and then figured it out and learned how to do it. But the more we can empower other creators through these experiences, this knowledge, and just make it so it's easier and easier and easier for the next generation of creators to like learn from the experiences that you've had, fast forward through some of like the hard lessons, and so they can be more successful more quickly and bring great products to life. I think that's super cool. It's something that I'm super excited about too. So
I really love people, and I watch people struggle with getting an idea. People call me all the time.
Yeah.
And trying to give them whatever advice I can with the limited time I have and how to make it happen.
Yeah.
One of my great blessings, like you said, is too dumb to know what I don't know and to be afraid of the unknowns.
Yeah.
Just a real creator, don't even think about those things.
Yeah.
You get into it, go as fast as you can, as far as you can, and that's when you find out when there's a no.
Yeah.
Until you've exhausted every opportunity, it's always yes until you get to the end where you're like, okay,
that just reminded me, like one of my favorite quotes is "Fortune favors the bold," and there's another one that's like a lengthier poem that I have in my kind of favorite quotes list. I should know it word for word, but it's kind of like it's a longer version of "Fortune favors the bold," meaning like when you start something and you begin something, then fortune and God and the universe or whatever you want to think like kind of moves in your favor, but you've got to take those first steps. You've got to be willing to like put yourself out there, take the risk, and then that's when luck and other things start to get behind you, right? It's really never just going to like fall in your lap. You have to go like chase it and have the courage to be willing to fail multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Thomas Edison's usually the one who's kind of held up as like the ultimate, like 14,000 fails or whatever it was before, like, the light bulb and that kind of thing. But probably many of us, and I'm including myself in this, maybe quit too early or quit too soon, or we try it and then it didn't work. I'm like, and then you're like,
I hang on too long.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I think over the years I've developed more of the like persist and just keep going and keep going and keep going, to the point where some people are like, you're an idiot, like you should give up or you should stop. And I'm like, nah, I've developed this like persistence muscle. But I think that's what it takes to like persist through a lot of the initial failures. And I think one of the cool aspects of your story and stories is that you've persisted through a lot of stuff. You've learned a lot from those. And there's risk in partnerships. There's risk in, bringing people into your idea and bringing people into your business, whether they have significant ownership or not. Even just like working relationships with people can be really challenging, and so you've learned a lot from that. And I think maybe turning around and like helping younger creators and entrepreneurs think through stuff like that. Like, we'll think through, how do you create a successful partnership? How do you make sure that you're vetting potential partners and co-owners and that kind of thing in finding the right people that are going to mesh with your personality and have shared vision and goals for, what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
Well, dude, so much respect and admiration for all the creative things that you've done. I personally think it's cool, even though some of these things are like trophies on a shelf that didn't get quite as far as you might have wanted them to. Like, I think I still have the Andes Airplanes DVD that you gave me. We wore that thing out almost. Like my son, who turned 16 today, it's my son's birthday. Happy birthday, Easton. Awesome. He'll be listening to this like a week from now or whatever, but he probably watched like the episodes that you had on that DVD, like, I don't know, 100 times, right? We wore that thing out. But I think it's cool. It's like, I look at that and I'm like, JP created that, right? It's something that you created, and it's like a memorabilia or a trophy. I was the biggest, hugest, fattest fan of Sweeto Burrito. Loved Sweeto Burritos. In fact, I was going back in my memory.
Sometime, every once in a while, I have a Sweeto party at my house.
Okay.
Where I just make OG.
Yes, I absolutely want to come to that.
The next OG
in
party.
Fact, funny enough, one of my favorite ones was also, was it called the Little Bowl?
Little Bowl.
The kids one.
Yeah.
I would get like 5 or 6 of those because I think it was pretty simple. It was just like meat, cheese, and sauce.
Meat, cheese, and sauce.
And I loved that, but I also loved the more complex ones. Like I did like the carnivore. I loved a couple of the breakfast ones with like eggs and
breaknecks.
Yeah, so good. So anyway, yes, I definitely want to come to the next party.
Okay.
But I do have a lot of respect and admiration for what you've done, and you and I have talked a few times over the years about, it's so frustrating to be so excited and so passionate about a thing, and then it doesn't get as far as you wanted it to get. And I think people can get kind of frustrated about that and maybe give up on, like, I'm so sick and tired of like trying new stuff and exploring new stuff, because the pain of that not getting to where you wanted it to, or like feeling sometimes like the rug gets yanked out from under you, it is a painful process to go through. But I think you've learned, and you're a great example of this, is like, creators got to create, and you just kind of can't quit. You just go to the next one and go to the next one, and you keep building and you keep creating, and then really cool things start to happen. And I'm excited about the future of Life Cider. I guess I gotta start ordering this stuff, and because I think the acid reflux thing, like, I didn't realize it was the acetic acid, and I didn't realize it was actually creating more acidity is like the good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a great learning episode for me, so I've got to add this more into my diet. But excited for you, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where this goes, and when you sell, eventually we'll have you back on for round 2, and then we'll talk about, what's the next JP grand invention? What's the most interesting man in the world going to do next? So
you said interesting man in the world. As I'm listening to myself, I think, dude, you're crazy. Like, I've done so many random things. I
know, that's how you get the title.
Right. Okay.
You get the title, most interesting man in the world. So funny. I love it. Thanks, man.
Brother.